John Cena was the face of WWE for over a decade. The guy with the catchy slogans, the colorful shirts, and the uncanny ability to rise above any odds, no matter how ridiculous. He was the guy the hero kids loved, the rainmaker for WWE, and the champ who carried the company through tough times. But while Cena was winning titles and inspiring kids to never give up, he was also doing something much darker in the shadows. Something that was recognized only years after his major run as the face of the franchise.
You see a John Cena that I'm not proud of. A John Cena you have never seen before, but a John Cena necessary to keep.
While Cena was at the very top of WWE, hardly any new talent found mainstream success, and there was hardly any underdog who managed to get over. It wasn't that there was a lack of good performers during that time, or that the fact that these new guys didn't have the physique, the charisma, or the fan base. It was simply the fact that once these guys crossed paths with Big Match John, all that was left of these young superstars was a career-ending burial.
Knows that once you wrestle John Cena and lose, it's time to get out the shovels because guys like you bury guys like me.
And for a select few, this burial ceremony completely destroyed and reduced them to only a shell of their former selves.
And I am so sick and tired of trying to make average seem awesome.
The most extreme and early casualty in Cena's burial ceremony was the Nexus, where Cena managed to bury all 7 members in one single match.
Meet my team and realize that at SummerSlam, the Nexus is history!
The Nexus consisted of the Season 1 rookies of NXT. This was back when NXT was still a game show, where the winner received a WWE contract and a championship match. The winner of the first season, Wade Barrett, made a pact with the other rookies to form a group called the Nexus to dominate the WWE. On the 7th of June episode of Raw, the Nexus made their debut and wreaked havoc like no one ever before. They decimated the commentary team, the ring announcers, and ganged up on the champ John Cena while wreaking carnage on anything they could lay their hands on. The Nexus was very well received by the WWE Universe and got people talking about the product after a long time, since the usual WWE shows had grown very stale and predictable. And the Nexus brought in a much-needed sense of urgency and danger to these bland shows. Led by their leader, Barrett, the Nexus continued to interfere in wrestling matches and caused the champ Cena to lose his WWE title at the fatal 4-way pay-per-view. With the Nexus situation getting out of hand, Cena assembled a team of 7 members called Team WWE to destroy the group for good. Their clash was set as an elimination tag match for the main event of SummerSlam 2010, and everyone believed the Nexus was going over. They had the look, the heat, and the ability. It was time for these new stars to shine and lead a new era. However, the conclusion left a bitter taste in everyone's mouth. The final moments of the match had Cena alone with Barrett and Justin Gabriel of the Nexus. Shockingly, even after taking a DDT on exposed cement, Cena went into Super Cena mode to beat both of them, taking the win by making the Nexus leader tap out. And that's all she wrote. But what's surprising is that the match finish was changed minutes before the main event started. Barrett explained in an interview that Vince McMahon altered the outcome to have the Nexus lose because he believed SummerSlam needed a happy ending. When Jericho and Edge, who were part of the main event as members of Team WWE, found out, they advised Cena not to go along with Vince's idea. However, Cena believed Vince's decision was the right one. This single match changed the fate of the Nexus 7, and despite numerous attempts, they never regained their momentum. But still, this wasn't Cena's worst burial. The absolute worst burial of Cena's career, or perhaps of all time, goes to Cena's burial of Damien Sandow. It would be far-fetched to say that Sandow was heading for the big leagues, but given the character he had to work with, he was doing more than an adequate job. His gimmick, the savior of the masses, wasn't something that could be called top tier, but Sandow was making it work to the best of his ability. After teaming up with Cody Rhodes as the Rhodes Scholars, Sandow returned to singles competition and won the Money in the Bank briefcase for the World Heavyweight title. While many thought this was management's way of rewarding Sandow for his efforts, the night of his cash-in turned into one of the dirtiest burials in the history of pro wrestling. At the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view in 2013, Cena made his WWE return after a 2-month absence due to a torn tricep, facing Alberto Del Rio for the world title, which Cena managed to regain by the end of the night. The following night, Cena went to address the WWE Universe. Damien Sandow interrupted and unleashed a surprise attack on his arm. Sandow then launched a barrage of attacks on Cena's injured arm, starting with continuous shots from his briefcase, followed by collisions of Cena's arm into the ring post, the barricade, the steel steps, and finally, a chair shot with Cena's arm sandwiched between the steel steps and the chair. By this point, Cena was a one-armed man, and sensing an opportunity, Sandow cashed in his briefcase. Of course, Cena wasn't done. He wrestled an entire 13-minute match and did the impossible by pinning Sandow with an attitude adjustment, using only one arm. Maybe WWE felt Sandow wasn't ready for the top prize just yet, but making him lose to a one-armed Cena had to be a slap in the face. After that, Sandow was relegated to an imitation artist, followed by some mild success as Miz's stunt double. He was released by the company in 2016. His Money in the Bank cash-in was the closest moment he came to ever winning the gold. But John Cena's burial powers aren't limited to just in-ring matches. His burying power transcends the usual pinfall or submission inside the squared circle.
That big shovel, that's what you're gonna do, and you're gonna bury as much young talent as you can.
And his good old friend Zack Ryder is a testament to that statement. Zack Ryder never really got anything to work with in WWE, but he was still over with the fans by making videos on YouTube that ignited his popularity to the point where he was getting more cheers than The Rock and selling more merchandise than John Cena. WWE, of course, wasn't too happy that someone was getting themselves over without their involvement, so they constructed a master plan to bury Ryder once and for all. And for that, they decided to bring in the master barrier, John Cena. Back in 2011, WWE showcased how close Cena and Zack Ryder were as friends, with Cena even going as far as speaking to Raw GM John Laurinaitis to force him to give Zack Ryder a US title shot. This was WWE's vain attempt to leech off some of Ryder's popularity and redirect it to Cena. But with Zack emerging as the new US champion, everything seemed great, but a darker figure was looming in the shadows in the form of a returning masked Kane. The returning Kane made it his mission to make Cena embrace the hatred, and he somehow decided that the best way to do this was by going after the people closest to John, such as his friend Zack Ryder. Over the next few weeks on Raw, Kane began stalking Ryder and would eventually attack him backstage, and with Ryder's back injured, he failed to defend his US championship. But Kane wasn't done. He destroyed Zack Ryder by choke-slamming him through the stage, resulting in a broken neck that left Ryder immobilized and forced him to use a wheelchair. However, Ryder still didn't lose his positive attitude, and he confided to Cena that he was going to confess his feelings to Eve Torres so they could start a relationship. As John went to search for Eve backstage, he found her in the midst of being kidnapped by Kane, and somehow he managed to save her, but in the heat of the moment, the couple shared an intimate moment. But Zack happened to be nearby to witness everything. Ryder had now lost his championship, his health, and his lover, all because he was friends with John Cena. As Ryder tried to confront Cena, he only ended up humiliating himself more and received the final blow when Kane pushed him off the stage while he was still in his wheelchair. WWE used John Cena successfully and managed to turn Ryder from a star to charcoal in a matter of weeks. Even after he recovered on screen, Ryder never went on to feud with Kane or Cena. All he got was a kick to the groin from Eve Torres at WrestleMania. But Ryder wasn't the first victim of Cena's burial ceremony. One of Cena's earliest burials came in 2007 when Cena buried Umaga deeper than a fossil, when Edward Fatu, formerly known as Jamal in 2003, was reintroduced as Umaga. WWE creative struck gold. With his savage persona, explosive in-ring style, and an aura of pure dominance, Umaga became an unstoppable wrecking ball of destruction. Complemented by his menacing theme music and the charismatic Armando Estrada as his mouthpiece, Umaga quickly established himself as one of the most formidable and fearsome threats in WWE history. With the WWE roster now consisting of mostly lighter superstars, Umaga stood out as a true monster. However, this was as far as Umaga's dominance would go. In their first encounter for the WWE Championship at New Year's Revolution 2007, Cena handed Umaga his first loss by securing a surprise roll-up, ending his undefeated streak. If that wasn't enough, Cena dealt the final blow at the Royal Rumble in a brutal last man standing match, decisively defeating the once feared Samoan Bulldozer. Following these back-to-back losses, Umaga's aura of invincibility was shattered. He diminished to just another mid-card act, never regaining the momentum or stature that had once made him a top-tier threat. On the topic of undefeated streaks, we can't forget the Bulgarian brute, Rusev, whose momentum hit a brick wall when his path crossed with the champ. Rusev was introduced in 2013 as a villainous foreigner, an unhinged monster from Russia, always ready to destroy on the command of the beautiful Lana. He was called up to the main roster in 2014 and went on a year-long dominating undefeated streak. Clearly, he was one of the breakout heels in wrestling, ticking all the right checkboxes. Rusev was on a roll during the year, defeating everyone in his path and eventually snatching up the United States Championship from Sheamus. But with all the noise Rusev was making, he soon found himself in the crosshairs of the man, whose name was John Cena. However, things didn't start out bad from the beginning. When the two met for the first time at Fastlane, Rusev successfully defended the title against the champ after an 18-minute battle. Rusev did the unthinkable. He defeated John Cena at a pay-per-view. But John wasn't going to let that be the end of it. This was simply hyping up Rusev for their next clash at WrestleMania 31, and unfortunately Rusev's undefeated streak and title were taken away on the same night. If Rusev had just stayed away from Cena after his loss, his career might have taken a different trajectory, but to compensate for his one victory at Fastlane, Rusev had to lose at WrestleMania, then at Extreme Rules in his own favored Russian chain match, and finally the nail in the coffin came when the Bulgarian brute said the words, "I quit," in their final encounter at Payback. After 3 successive pay-per-view losses to Big Match John, Cena turned Rusev from a monster to a mere mortal. But the superstar Cena buried with the most potential to become a main event star was Bray Wyatt. Transforming the forgettable Husky Harris from the Nexus into the eerie and enigmatic Bray Wyatt was one of WWE's most brilliant creative moves. Wyatt brought a chilling and unique aura to WWE, filling a void of supernatural psychological storytelling that the company sorely lacked at the time. Backed by his haunting promos and dominant victories over stars like Chris Jericho, Daniel Bryan, and members of The Shield, Wyatt was on the fast track to becoming WWE's next breakout star. However, his true test came at WrestleMania 30, where a match against John Cena would determine his trajectory. This was Wyatt's moment, a chance to cement himself as a legitimate threat and a character on par with icons like The Undertaker. Bray had to win to be taken seriously, both by fans and within the WWE hierarchy. But instead, Cena once again refused to pass the torch, defeating Wyatt on the grandest stage of them all. The decision made no sense. Cena had nothing to gain. His legacy was already untouchable, while Bray had everything to lose. A win could have catapulted Wyatt into legendary status, but the loss chipped away at his credibility. While Wyatt did find moments of success later in his career, his potential to become a generational star was never fully realized, and much of that can be traced back to this pivotal match. Now, it's up for debate whether any or all of these burials had Cena pulling the strings of their careers. It could just be that Cena was the tool WWE used to play out their own creative decisions. But unfortunately, this young superstar had to kiss his career goodbye simply because Cena hated him. We're talking about Alex Riley. Riley was not the best in-ring performer, but he was great on the mic, had plenty of charisma, and was exceptional as The Miz's right-hand man. However, after a few storylines, mainly his feud with his former mentor, The Miz, WWE had no plans for Riley. After wrestling a few matches without any notable direction, he was demoted from a wrestler to a member of the commentary team. And even though he returned to in-ring action in NXT, it was clear that his popularity as a wrestler had vanished. In 2016, Alex Riley was fired by the company. But why was Riley never given the chance or opportunity to prove himself? Well, Riley would explain in interviews that it was because he was hated by the company's top star, John Cena, who used his influence behind the curtains to halt his push. Other superstars like Ryback also confirmed that Cena would bury Riley backstage in front of many other wrestlers.
Because John would sit by the monitors and just destroy Riley and just talk about how much of a piece of that he was, how horrible that he was, every single day. All of us, me, Usos, everybody would just look at each other like, what the is wrong with this guy?
Apparently, the issue had stemmed because Cena once tried to give Riley some advice, but he simply ignored him. And according to Riley, even though he tried to fix things with Cena, it just never happened. If you've enjoyed the video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to WrestleFaction for more awesome wrestling content.